Well, that life isn't like that. You know, it's weird sometimes because before the 48 Laws of Power came out, I was just this nobody living in a one-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica, rent controlled, never really made any money, never really had any success in life. And I was constantly giving people advice, but nobody would listen to me because I hadn't written the book. And suddenly the book comes out and I'm supposed to be a different person. It's very strange, but I'm actually the same person that I was when I was living in that miserable one-bedroom apartment, and giving out my advice that nobody listened to. Now people listen to it, but the only difference is because suddenly I have this credential, which is very strange.
Yeah, I can relate to that in so many ways. I used to be mentoring, coaching people in my community. I would do these little events in London 10, 11 years ago now, where like 5 people would show up and it was, I was just doing it. I would speak at universities for free for years. Like it's been such a big part of my life to just do this. I've always wanted to be someone who's learning and sharing. That's what I enjoy. I enjoy learning and I enjoy sharing. And I enjoy synthesizing and making things simple and practical for other people. That's what I get my joy from. And I was always inspired by 2 quotes. One is Ivan Pavlov, where he said, if you want a new idea, read an old book. And so that's always been something that my work has been inspired by. It's always based on ideas that seem timeless, but they're and old.
Very beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's another thought from Einstein, which is another part of what inspires my work, which is if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. And so these were the 2 kind of tenets that what I enjoyed doing in the world. And again, I don't think they're magnificent, miraculous, or brilliant. They're just what I'm meant to do. And there's such a beautiful significance and insignificance in that very understanding. Like it's really significant building because I'm like, I know what I have to do. And it's really insignificant because I'm like, it's just what I have to do. It's not the best or the worst, or it's not comparative.
Right.
And I think that's how, when you're talking in the daily laws of power, that's kind of how, in different words, how you describe like your life's, your life's gift, your life's work, your life's path.
I've always liked old books myself. So, I read a lot of books of philosophy, etc., history, but I also read books of famous Zen classics. The 20th century books, I'm not so sure, but I'd read like something from the 11th century where the thought process is so different, but it's timeless, it's human. Man, it is so beautiful. It so sparks these ideas that he, or this writer, this thinker, was dealing with the same things now, 1,000 years later. But they still strike a truth, but it's in this language that's very weird and primitive and barbaric. I don't know why that excites me so much. It's the same idea that a modern writer might write, but put it in the words of somebody 1,000 years ago, it suddenly touches me.
Yeah.
Can you explain that, Jay?
I mean, I don't know if I can, apart from the fact that you've reincarnated and you had some connection to it, but can I explain it? I can't explain it, but I can reflect on it. I mean, I find that there's a part of it that writer or creator may never have known if anyone would ever read it.
Yeah.
And so that privacy and that secrecy and that intimacy with their work, not knowing that it would ever be viewed, seen, read, broadcasted, that has some power to it.
Yeah. There's a humility to that. Whereas now people write, we're expecting all these people to be reading it. We do it for the attention.
Yeah.
It was much different back then. Yeah, that's very interesting. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I've definitely found that I try and sit with ideas for longer now and try and I'd love to know your process for that. How have you managed that since that moment of where you became quote unquote successful externally because of 48 Laws? How did that change your creative process? How did you hold on to the roots of this kind of thinking?
So after the 48 Laws of Power came out and it was successful, I was at a turning point in my life. And it's a turning point that a lot of people I think have faced was, do I just continue redoing the 48 Laws of Power? It was successful. It worked well. Why don't I just write the 48 Laws of Power Part 2? It'll bring in money, it'll bring in attention. I'll just riff off what I wrote there. And something about me was not comfortable with that. It seemed cheap, it seemed easy, and it seemed lazy. And I know myself that if I'm not challenged by something different, I grow bored. So I have to write something that feels like there's energy behind it. There's anger, there's love, there's something powerful behind it. I have to feel it or it won't be in the words. So if I'm just doing the 48 Laws of Power Part 2, it won't be there. It'll have an emptiness. And damn it, a lot of artists and writers fall into that trap, and it's why their books kind of have this sort of hollow ring to them, right? They're just going through the motions, just repeating what worked before. And I can't stand that feeling. I have to feel like I'm off into a new land with this new book. So each book has to represent a challenge, right? And so the one I'm writing now is completely different from all 7 of the other books. And it's an incredible challenge, but it makes me excited about every day because I know I cannot repeat the same kind of books over and over and over again. My soul becomes dead, and I have to feel alive with each project.